So I don't know about you, but there's something that's bothering me here a little bit. Think about it. You connect your computer to the network and it starts sending and receiving all this information. How does it know how to sort all this stuff? I mean, think of all the packets that are going to be arriving at your system. How does it know to send one piece of information to the correct service or application? How does it get all this stuff sorted? We'll take a look at that in this particular nugget. When your computer sends or receives data over the network, it can utilize something called Transmission Control Protocol or User Datagram Protocol. This is super important. In fact, I've made a nugget independent of this one for you called TCP versus UDP, and obviously I want you to watch this. But this transmission control protocol, let's just summarize it right now by saying this is a reliable way to send information and UDP is an unreliable way. Now, if it's unreliable, it's probably more efficient. It probably goes quicker, and that's what UDP is all about. So we have these two ways in which your computer can send information. Now, in order to use a certain method, we need like some addressing information to direct it to the correct place. It reminds me of when you stick like some piece of correspondence, right? You write this important letter and then you stick this into a FedEx envelope. On that FedEx envelope, you need to put addressing information so it gets to the right place. That's what this is like. On your data, there'll be a TCP header or a UDP header that's stuck onto your data, and the addressing information can be put in there. There are numbers, simple numbers called port numbers that can indicate where this information is supposed to go. In fact, when you combine the port number with the IP address of the machine, you have what's called a socket. So we have ports and sockets that are utilized in order to handle the addressing here to get the information to the correct place. So Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This is the stuff, this is the technology that makes our web surfing work. Wow, pretty important. Web browsing is a key part of everybody's life today, it seems like. Even people that weren't computer literate before, like my grandmother, is going to be in there doing HTTP on her phone or her tablet or maybe even her computer. So, important stuff. Now, HTTP web traffic uses Transmission Control Protocol port 80. It's reserved for that purpose. So I'll draw a line here. This is how HTTP is functioning. It gets the reserved port of 80. Now, this is something I know like I know my middle name. Seriously, it is just like, in fact, I know it better than I know my middle name. Just recently, I realized I wasn't 100% sure how to spell my middle name. Wow. Freaky. Anyways, so we know this. How do I know this so incredibly well? Well, because for years, I've been punching holes in network firewall software so that port 80 can come through. And I've been seeing port 80 in packet captures all the time. And it's something you know as a network engineer. Now, if you're brand new to this, you're going to have to learn this through memorization. And that's why I included A+ flashcards for you along with this course, because these numbers you're just going to absolutely want to use flashcards to memorize until you start working with these protocols every day. There's a secure version of web surfing, of course, called HTTPS, Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, or HTTP SSL, or a lot of different variations of what that stands for. All we care about, though, is it's for secure web surfing, and it's a TCP thing, and it's port 443. DNS will actually use TCP and it'll use UDP, and it uses port 53 for its operations. Telnet uses Transmission Control Protocol port 23. Oh, and by the way, back up. DNS, what does that do? Well, we've got a nugget on DHCP and DNS for you. DNS makes it so that when you type in CBT nuggets into a browser, you can find it utilizing that happy name. Telnet is where we go in and remote into a computer so that we can control it, or into a device. That's transmission control protocol port 23 that's opened up so we can go in and do that. The problem with Telnet is it is not secure. So a secure replacement for Telnet is called Secure Shell. That's at TCP port 23. File transfer protocol, it loves transmission control protocol port 21. That's where we can transfer a file over the inner network. And then how about UDP? I mean, isn't it going to get any more love? Well, sure. There's a version of FTP called Trivial File Transfer Protocol. It's an unreliable way to transfer files. It's at UDP port 69. Simple Network Management Protocol, a way for us to manage systems over the network, is going to take a UDP approach, and it's going to utilize port 161. You get a sense for looking at this that there's a lot more services and applications that are going to do TCP than UDP, and that is absolutely factual. Yes, a lot more of our applications and services today are going to say we want reliability and we're okay with the overhead. And by the way, remember I said, I know these better than I know my middle name? I really do. All of these, boy, oh boy, do I know these cold. Now, let me bring up a couple more here that you are responsible for knowing, and I'm going to admit, some of these I would not have known. Some of these I would have had to best guess in an exam environment. So I need to use my own flashcards because many of these I never would have known. I don't have them memorized. Now, as you might guess, email gets pretty complex and you would want it to be reliable, so we have some transmission control protocol ports being utilized here. There's the simple mail transfer protocol, there's the post office protocol, there's the internet message access protocol. You may use some or all of these in your email implementation. We got TCP ports 25, 110, 143 going on for these email purposes. This one I actually did have memorized because I just had to punch holes in a firewall recently to get this working. This is the remote desktop protocol, TCP port number 3389. This is really neat. This is a Windows technology where you're sitting at a computer here, Windows machine, and you could go all the way even across the internet and you could remote into the device that's way far away. It looks like you're sitting right on that device. By the way, there's plenty of additional third parties that offer this service. There's LogMeIn, there's, oh gosh, which one do I use? TeamViewer. There's all kinds of remote desktop applications now that you can use instead of the RDP that's built into Windows. But obviously, because it is built into Windows, there's a lot of remote desktop protocol going on out there, and it's information addressed to TCP port 3389. Server message block. Server message block brings the common internet file system to Windows where we can share stuff in a Windows environment. I'll talk to you more about this in a nugget called Other Network Protocols, but just so you know, Transmission Control Protocol, and notice it uses a bunch of ports potentially, 137 through 139 and 445. Apple networks need to share files and resources on the network. So there's the Apple Filing Protocol. It uses Transmission Control Protocol. 427 and 548 are commonly used in that Apple network sharing environment. So we have a lot of ports to memorize. The ones you need to memorize will be in the flashcards for you inside your Nugget Lab files, so you can run through these again and again and again so that you can recall them easily and survive any exam question about them. But as we're memorizing them, please, it's critical that you keep in mind the function. Why do these numbers exist? They're going to allow us to direct traffic to the correct protocol, like TCP versus UDP. And once we get the traffic to the correct protocol, to get the traffic specifically to the service that needs it. So when we get a packet and it's addressed for TCP port 80, your machine, your computer, knows exactly what to do with that particular traffic. So Transmission Control Protocol and User Datagram Protocol ports were examined in this particular nugget. don't forget, we're going to elaborate on TCP and UDP in the appropriate nugget dedicated to that. We're also going to elaborate on many of the protocols that we discussed in this particular nugget. I sure hope you found this nugget informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.